How could you do this to me?
It is not what it looks like, please!
The wedding is over!
One text message made. The Mafia Boss cancel his wedding. A silver charm the size of a fingernail spins on a bracelet chain, catching light from a single hanging bulb, while a woman's hands fold napkins into perfect triangles without looking down at them. Rosa Moretti has folded 400 napkins tonight. She knows this because she counts everything now. Plates, tips, breaths. Ever since counting became easier than feeling. The charm on her wrist is shaped like a tiny music box, no bigger than a button, and it never plays a sound. It doesn't need to. Every time it swings against her pulse point, she remembers exactly who gave it to her, and exactly why she will never wear it again after tonight. She sets the last napkin down in a stack so precise it looks machine-made. Then she does something she has not done in 3 months. She takes off the bracelet, holds the charm to the light one final time, and photographs it against the white tablecloth like she's documenting evidence at a crime scene. Her thumb hovers over a phone number she memorized before she ever admitted she loved the person attached to it. Across the city, in a cathedral being dressed with $60,000 of white orchids, a man is being fitted for a jacket he has not chosen, for a wedding he did not propose, to a woman whose name he sometimes forgets to use. He does not know yet that in 4 hours his phone will buzz once. He does not know that a photograph of a silver charm is about to travel across Chicago faster than any army he commands ever could. What does a woman send to end things forever, when she has never once said them out loud? The restaurant is called Victoria's, and it sits on a corner in Chicago's West Loop, where the brick still remembers Prohibition. Rosa has worked the floor there for 6 years, and she knows this room the way a pilot knows a cockpit. Which floorboard creaks near table 9? Which glass rack sticks in humid weather? Which regular takes his espresso before the check, and which one takes it after, as an excuse to stay 10 minutes longer? She carries 4 plates up one arm without a tray, hot ceramic warming the inside of her wrist, the smell of seared branzino and charred lemon rising into her face. She does not spill. She has never spilled. Her manager likes to say, Rosa could carry a wedding cake through an earthquake and it would come out level. What the customers don't see is what she carries besides the plates. The mental map of every allergy at table 6, every anniversary at table 12, every man in the back corner who eats alone and needs someone to ask about his day without expecting an answer. A regular in a cashmere coat snaps his fingers at her without looking up from his phone. Waters 4, no ice, and hurry it up. Some of us have somewhere to be. Rosa says nothing. She brings the water within 90 seconds. No ice, glasses sweating in the cold. She does not roll her eyes. She does not sigh. She files the moment away, in the part of herself where she keeps every small unkindness anyone has ever aimed at her. Not to be bitter, but because remembering exactly how it feels is the only thing that keeps her from ever doing it to someone else. She is 28 years old. She has raised her little sister since she was 20. She has never once been late with rent, and she has never once told anyone how close she came to being late. At 9:47 that night, the owner, a soft-spoken older man everyone calls Uncle Sal, though he is uncle to no one, pulls her aside near the wine cellar. The private room, he says. Upstairs. They need someone who won't ask questions and won't drop a fork. Rosa doesn't ask whose room it is. She has heard the rumors about who really owns Victoria's, the kind of rumors you don't repeat if you want to keep your job, or your kneecaps. She wipes her hands on her apron, checks that Mia's photo is still tucked behind her employee badge, and pushes open the door at the top of the stairs. The room upstairs is quieter than the dining room below. In the specific way a held breath is quieter than a held conversation. 5 men sit around a table with a bottle of wine no one has poured. At the head of it is a man with a thin white scar crossing his right eyebrow, sleeves rolled to the forearm, a folder closed in front of him like he's already decided not to open it in front of an audience. Rosa doesn't know his name yet. She sees a man who hasn't eaten today. She can tell by the way his jaw is set, the particular tightness men get when they're running on coffee and control. And she sees 4 other men watching him the way people watch weather. Bread first, she says, setting a basket down before anyone asks. You look like a man who forgot lunch. One of the men at the table actually laughs, then stops himself, glancing at the man with the scar to see how the moment will land. He looks up at her, really looks, the way people rarely do with the person refilling their glass, and says nothing for a 3-second silence that feels like 30. It is the silence of a man recalculating something. Every other person in this room chooses their words around him. She simply spoke. This is Alessandro De Luca's defining wound, though no one in the room could name it. He has spent 11 years being handled, protected, managed, and somewhere in that decade, he stopped being spoken to like a person and started being spoken to like a decision that needed approval. Rosa, without knowing anything about him, just gave him bread and an opinion. A small girl's voice cuts through the room's tension. Mia, 8 years old, who has trailed her sister upstairs against every rule of the restaurant, clutching a coloring book she refuses to be parted from. "Are you the boss of the whole place?" she asks Alessandro directly, with the fearlessness only children and fools possess. The other men in the room go rigid. Alessandro's mouth does something it hasn't done in a long time. It almost smiles. "I'm the boss of some of it," he tells her, seriously, like she's asked a fair business question. "Rosa's the boss of the good part," Mia says, matter of fact, and tugs her sister's apron toward the door. Rosa flushes and apologizes, pulling Mia back downstairs. Alessandro doesn't stop her. He doesn't need to. He has already made a decision, watching a waitress correct a room full of armed men without raising her voice, and a child speak to him like he was simply a man. He tells no one what the decision is. Not yet. What would you do if the most dangerous man in the room asked you to stay? Not with words, but by making sure you were the only one still there when everyone else was told to leave. It starts with small things, the way most true things do. He requests the same section every time he comes in, though he never says it's because of her. He tips exactly the way a man tips someone he respects, not someone he's trying to impress. Consistent, never showy. When his men start coming with him, one of them, a broad-shouldered enforcer named Dino, who has never in 6 years remembered a single waitress's name, starts calling her Rosa without being told, and pulls out her chair when she brings the check to their table like she's the one being served. 3 weeks in, she leaves work at midnight to find her car won't start. She calls a tow service, resigned to a 2-hour wait in the cold. 20 minutes later, a mechanic arrives. One, Alessandro De Luca happens to keep on a retainer for exactly this kind of unspoken emergency, though he never once mentions arranging it. He has never sent a mechanic for anyone, not his lawyer, not his own driver. Rosa doesn't know this. She only knows her car starts, and there's a receipt marked paid in full that she never signed for. She wears the silver music box charm every shift now, small, quiet, tucked against her wristwatch, because he gave it to her the week after she found a De Luca family heirloom, a ring worth more than she'd make in 10 years, left behind in a booth, and returned it without asking for a reward. He'd pressed the charm into her palm instead of cash. Everyone else would have kept the ring, he told her. You didn't even consider it. She has turned that sentence over in her mind more times than she'd admit. One night she catches him in the restaurant's back office at 2 a.m., alone, staring at a ledger with numbers that mean funerals, not finances. 3 names of men who died protecting his territory, their families' payments logged in his own handwriting, because he refuses to let anyone else carry that weight. She doesn't ask. She sets down a plate of leftover bread and olive oil and leaves without a word. He doesn't thank her. He doesn't need to. That's the whole point. Into this warmth walks a man named Lorenzo Bellini, silver-templed, soft-spoken, the kind of family friend who remembers everyone's birthday and never raises his voice. He shakes Rosa's hand the first time they meet and tells her, with apparent sincerity, that Alessandro seems lighter these days, that whatever she's doing, she should keep doing it. He brings Mia a coloring book. He tips generously. Everyone in the family calls him Uncle Lorenzo. No one in that room yet understands that Lorenzo has been counting exactly how much lighter Alessandro has become and calculating how quickly he can extinguish it. The first sign comes from a silence, not a sound. Rosa notices it before anyone tells her anything is wrong. Alessandro stops coming in for 3 days, and when he returns, he sits with a stiffness she hasn't seen since the week she met him. Dino won't meet her eyes. The other men speak more quietly than usual. The specific quiet of men who've been told a decision has already been made above their heads. She asks Dino directly, refilling his water without being asked. Something happen? Nothing you need to worry about, he says. gentle but final. And it's the first time anyone in that family has ever spoken to her like she doesn't belong in the room. She files it away. But that night, she overhears half a phone call through the kitchen's thin wall. Lorenzo's voice, warm and reasonable as always, saying the words Contessa family, and finalize the arrangement, and he'll understand it's necessary in the same breath he might use to order dessert. She mentions it to Alessandro the next evening, carefully, without accusation. He goes still in that particular way he does when he's protecting someone by staying silent, and tells her it's business, nothing that concerns her, in a voice that closes the door on the conversation as firmly as any hand ever could. It's the first lie he's ever told her. She recognizes the shape of it even without knowing the content. She doesn't confront him again. Instead, she makes a choice that costs her everything she's built in this room. She starts pulling back. Fewer smiles, shorter conversations. She tells herself it's self-protection. What it actually is grief arriving early, before the funeral. 2 weeks later, Alessandro tells his men, not her, never her, that he is marrying Isabella Contessa, daughter of a rival boss, within the month. Peace between three families, sealed the old way. He tells himself this is sacrifice, the only currency he has left to spend, to keep the people he loves alive. He does not let himself examine why the thought of it feels like amputation rather than duty. Rosa hears it from Uncle Sal, not from him. She does not cry in the dining room. She finishes her shift. She counts the napkins. Then she goes home, takes off her apron, and writes a resignation letter that says nothing true and everything necessary. The lowest point isn't the wedding announcement. It's the morning after, when Alessandro comes to Vittoria's looking for her, and Uncle Sal tells him, awkwardly, that Rosa Moretti no longer works there, and gives no forwarding information, because she asked him not to. 3 days before the wedding, Rosa is not thinking about Alessandro at all. She is thinking about rent, about Mia's school shoes, about the temp agency shift she picked up cleaning offices downtown at 6 a.m., which is how she ends up in the executive suite of a building she's never had reason to enter, emptying a trash can beneath a desk that belongs to Lorenzo Bellini. She recognizes the letterhead before she recognizes the danger of reading it. A financial document, half shredded but not enough. Payments from 3 separate families routed through Lorenzo's shell accounts. A projection titled Post-Merger Consolidation, and, tucked in the margin in Lorenzo's own handwriting, A. Weakened by sentiment. Asset. Once redirected. She reads it twice to be sure she isn't inventing meaning where there's only paperwork. She isn't. Lorenzo has spent 2 years engineering this marriage, not for peace between families, but to trap Alessandro inside an alliance Lorenzo can quietly bleed fence. She does not call him. She does not run to the wedding with the papers in her hand like a woman in a movie. She sits with it for a full day, because she has Lirim both sides, using the very devotion Alessandro has to his people as the leash. Ned that the truth arrives more safely when it's carried carefully instead of thrown. She photographs every page, she makes 3 copies and hides them in 3 places. And she thinks, really thinks, about what kind of goodbye she owes a man who lied to protect her from a truth she's just uncovered on her own. Later, in a moment she will never describe to anyone, she passes Lorenzo on the street outside the building, and he stops her with unsettling warmth, mentioning the wedding, mentioning how good it will be for everyone. For one unguarded second, something crosses his face that isn't calculation, something closer to old grief. I built 3 families' worth of peace with my own hands once, he tells her, apropos of nothing, and watched it get handed to men who never thanked me for it. I don't intend to watch that happen twice. Then the warmth returns like a door closing, and he wishes her well and walks on. It is the closest thing to an explanation he will ever give anyone. It does not excuse him. It makes him almost make sense, which is worse. Rosa understands, finally, what the villain wanted was never Alessandro's happiness or the family's peace. It was leverage, disguised as legacy. And the only way to stop him is to make sure Alessandro sees the truth before he says a single vow. The cathedral is filled with white orchids and 300 people who all believe they are witnessing peace. Rosa does not walk in through the front doors. She finds Isabella Contessa first, alone in the bridal preparation room, and does something no one expects. She doesn't accuse, doesn't beg, doesn't cry. She simply sets the financial documents on the vanity in front of the mirror and says, "You deserve to marry someone who chose you, not someone who was bought for you." Then she tells Isabella exactly what Lorenzo has built and why, and lets a bride who has never once been asked what she wants make her own decision for the first time in the entire arrangement. Isabella reads 3 pages in silence. Then she stands, smooths her gown, and walks toward the altar herself, not to marry, but to speak. Meanwhile, at 10:58 that morning, Alessandro's phone buzzes once in his jacket pocket, beneath the tuxedo he did not choose. A photograph, a silver music box charm resting on white fabric, catching the light one last time. Beneath it, 6 words. "Thank you for teaching me what real love looks like. Goodbye." He does not need 300 guests to tell him what that means. He is already moving before his best man finishes asking what's wrong. He arrives at the altar not to rescue anyone. Isabella is already standing before her own father, refusing the marriage in a voice that carries to the back pew, holding Lorenzo's documents above her head, where every family patriarch in the room can see the letterhead. Alessandro walks the aisle not as a groom, but as a man completing what has already been set into motion, placing himself beside Isabella not as a suitor, but as an ally, both of them turning to face Lorenzo, who has gone the color of the orchids around him. "You built an empire on other people's silence," Rosa says. She has followed Isabella out from the preparation room, and every guest, every capo, every wide-eyed usher turns to hear a waitress speak in a cathedral full of men who kill for less. "I'm done being quiet so you can keep building it." Dino, standing guard near the door, is the first man in that family to step toward Rosa rather than toward Alessandro. A small thing, a single step, that says everything about where loyalty has actually been standing this whole time. Somewhere in that cathedral, a small girl in a flower girl dress is gripping her sister's hand, watching every adult in the room finally tell the truth at once. And if you have ever waited for the people you love to stop performing peace and start living it, you already know exactly what this moment feels like. Alessandro crosses the aisle to Rosa. He does not explain himself. He simply takes the silver charm from his pocket, the one from the photograph, which he had already, impossibly, kept a matching one of since the day he gave her the original, and holds it out between them, in front of every witness who will ever whisper about this day for the next decade. 3 months later, Vittoria's has a new private room upstairs. Smaller, quieter, reserved most nights for a table of 2. Rosa still works the floor some evenings, not because she needs the job, but because she likes the floorboard that creaks near table 9, and the regulars who've started asking after Mia by name. Alessandro sits at his usual table now, with no folder in front of him, no ledger of dead men's names. Just bread, untouched wine, and a habit of watching the door for her, the way he once watched a room for threats. Mia sits between them one evening, coloring on the back of a receipt, and looks up at Alessandro with the same fearless directness she used the very first night. "Are you still the boss of some of it?" she asks. "Less of it every day," he tells her, and means it. Lorenzo's empire dismantled itself within a month. 3 families choosing truth over convenience, once it was laid in front of them. Isabella Contessa now runs her father's legitimate business interests and sends Rosa a Christmas card every year, signed simply, "Thank you for asking me what I wanted." The final image of the evening is small. Rosa's wrist resting on the white tablecloth, the silver music box charm catching light from the same hanging bulb above the same table, where she once photographed it. "Goodbye." Alessandro's hand covers hers. Not a proposal, not a declaration. Just a hand resting where a charm used to mean an ending, and now means the opposite of one. Have you ever loved someone quietly, for so long, that the only way you knew how to say goodbye was through an object instead of your own voice? Is there someone in your life who has been giving you small, unspoken proof of how they feel, and you've been too afraid, or too proud, to call it what it is? Rosa never said "I love you" once in this entire story. She didn't have to. Sometimes the truth arrives in a photograph, a charm, 6 words on a screen, and changes everything anyway. If this story moved you, subscribe, because the next one goes even deeper.